Okay.
You need to fold it.
How much time do you need to finish it?
Well, I've got a lot. We'll never get through it all, but I thought it would be better to have more content than to have less. And I can send the PowerPoint right to you guys. This is not proprietary, as you know. Everything that we develop for Schmeckit is Schmeckit is. And I have some handouts that I'll be giving you that will just be things to help foster some of the conversation that we're doing. So what my understanding was is that I wanted to promote this notion of helping students practice knowing what they need to do when they're sitting in class, okay?
Right.
And it's kind of a
Have you guys started?
Yeah. It's kind of a sacred cow in a way if you consider disabilities. And so I'll give you a little bit of background. I grew up for my first 10 years living in a car. My mom and dad were migrant workers, and so down in San Bernardino Valley in California. And my mom and dad were alcoholics, addicts, and when I was 10 years old, my dad got into a fight with a man down there, and the guy fell off of this plank. They were fighting over a ham radio, and he broke his neck, and he died. The man did. So my dad ended up in Fresno County Jail waiting manslaughter charges when my mom got drunk with some other people, and my 5-year-old sister was ran over and killed by a car on Highway 41 in Fresno. And so my first 10 years were a teeny bit traumatic. I came up to Oregon because when the judge let my dad out to go to the funeral, he said to my dad in front of the whole family, and there were 8 of us at that time, if you show up your face in this county again, I'm going to throw the book at you. So we came to Oregon. Well, in California, you can live in the car for 10 months out of the year. In Oregon, about 2, and it's cold. So we came up here in March, and by June, we're back out in the fields, and we're in Turner, and we're living in a migrant camp out there. And late June, right after the strawberries, in between that and the beans, my mom and dad had gotten their money that we all worked for, and we're headed to the bar, got drunk, and then on the way back, they were passed out, and us girls were at the time 11, 10, and not quite 9. And my almost 9-year-old sister was driving. It was her turn to drive because that's how the family rolled. And she ran into a telephone pole. And we ended up in foster care here in Marion County. And for 6 months, the system tried to get us back with our parents. And December 24th, Christmas Eve, we went back to our parents. And May 10th, the following year, I came home from school, and my mom and dad had left. They just drove away. And I was raised in foster care here from that time on. I was in the 6th grade at Four Corners School, and I was kind of a ticked off kid. I mean, I don't even know how else to describe it. And I did some running away, and I got picked up when I was 13 for shoplifting here in Salem, and bored one day, in essence, in a foster home, kind of let loose in town. And I ended up in downtown before Judge Felton for the 3rd time. And when I walked into the courtroom, he said, "Hi, Faye." And I realized he knew me because of what I'd done wrong. And it was a very similar feeling I had the day the judge told my dad, "If you ever show," and I thought, I can't live like this. And I wanted to change my life. I had one problem. I was still illiterate, and I didn't know how to change my life because all I'd seen was that. So I found people in my school who looked like I wanted my life to look. And a girl, a peer, about 6 months later discovered I was illiterate because I didn't even know the term, to be honest with you, because I was illiterate. So when I'd look at text or I'd look at anything, I felt like maybe some of your ESL students might feel. I just looked at things and I got frustrated. And so being fetal alcohol effect and being attention deficit and clearly hyper, still to this day, people know me, I would get this on my report card: nice kid, but doesn't apply herself. That was my constant thing, because I wasn't mean, I wasn't, delinquent, but I just couldn't read, I couldn't write, I didn't know academia, so I would chat.
But you probably didn't know what that meant either.
No.
Apply yourself. What does that mean?
Yeah, even the term, it was a foreign term. So Paula, her name was Paula Troseth, she taught me how to read with her sister's 1st grade stuff. I was a sophomore in high school. And she just took me home and said, "You know what? I have some stuff for you." And she sat me down with her sister's 1st grade primers. Do you remember C-Spot, the books? Mm-hmm. That's what she had. And I learned to read. And by the time I was 15, I was actually reading books. And I mean, really books, like real books with words. I mean, I know that sounds like not a big deal to people who went through education, but it is such a big deal. And I really do.
Sounds incredible.
I know, it's a huge deal.
Oh my God, what a life.
And right now, I have my bachelor's in psychology, my master's in special education, and I have all but dissertation in my doctoral degree. And I don't even know if I'll ever get my dissertation because it's not needed for what my passions are today. So, but that's where I'm at. And I say that only to say that what I teach, I actually know by life experience. And I love teaching, and I love students, and I believe all students can learn. But I'm also kind of, I don't even say bad word on the screen, but I'm kind of a hard butt. You know, I just say, okay, yes, and, okay? And so partly what this is about is to talk to students about practicing knowing what they need to do when they come into class. I watch for students who I think are here present with me, but they literally can't understand or read, okay? I will go and I will spend extra time with them. I'll pull them out. I'll call them. I'll email them. I'll have them text me. Weird thing is they can text, but they can't sometimes write a paper, and that's okay with me. So I'll help them when I see that they're texting and they're wanting and willing to communicate. I will help them. And I will also expect when my students come into class and I've handed the syllabus out, I'm very clear on my syllabi. I should have brought a syllabus for that matter, that I'm looking for attendance. I'm looking for attendance and participation. And the way I go about teaching is so practical. I want to walk over there, but I'll use this because I'm supposed to stay in the light. I'll say, okay, so attendance versus participation. This chair is attending every week, every day in class. It gets no grade. That doesn't count for me. Participation is when you are doing what you're doing right now. You're going, oh yeah, I get it. Or you're going, I don't understand that, which is a good question for me. I don't understand that. Excellent. Okay, so let me see if because that's my job. If they don't understand it, now I'm not doing my job. Does that make sense? So then I try to come at another avenue. So almost all the teaching that I do is going to be what is called observable measurable. It's going to be something I can teach students to behave themselves into a kind of learning. So let's say, for example, previous they got D's and F's. So we start to unearth what were causing those sorts of things. Well, I didn't go to class. Great, so attendance is important, okay? When I went to class, I didn't say anything, okay? So how can we step up your saying things? And what would be equivalent to saying things? I haven't even gotten into the PowerPoint. So that's some of the pieces that I want to talk about today. For example, I'm gonna unearth this PowerPoint for just a second so I make sure. These are some of the things that if I had 4 hours, we would be talking about, okay? How to take criticism as an instructor. That's one of the first things that I need to be willing to do. To improve my ability to help students learn best, I have to be willing to take that criticism and discern, is it true? Have I not communicated what they need so that they can understand what I'm saying? That's the first thing. And then for them to learn to take criticism back so that they can discern whether criticism is destructive, manipulative, or constructive, which is the good kind, right? We don't want destructive criticism of students, and we don't want manipulative criticism of students. So I have a handout that I'll give you that is helpful for that. It's called Fogging, and Sherman, 1996. Do you remember them too? They're wonderful. And it's a wonderful...
What do you teach here?
Psychology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, psychology. That's okay. That's a good question. And so the first thing I want people to do is learn how to take criticism. And then talking to students about the minimum of what they need to do in class. So when a class starts, my first question to them is, before we leave today, and I'll do the same thing with the two of you. Before we leave today, would you think about one thing that you learned today and how you're going to use it out there? So if you help students right at the beginning of the class practice knowing that they need to know something at the end. And I'd actually come to the end of a 4-hour class. I teach 4-hour classes for University of Phoenix, and had a student say, I don't know. And I'll say to them, excellent. Practice knowing, I'll come back to you. It's an expectation that I clearly state at the beginning of class that you need to practice knowing at least one thing that you got out of class. And then if I come back and they say I don't know, my next statement is, I wonder how long you're going to be in class for 4 hours and not practice knowing what you learned. It sounds mean, but it's a critical thinking question. And it opens up that so here's the visual. I'm practicing not knowing. How can I practice knowing? Because that's going the other way toward learning, okay? I didn't know what I didn't know. And even today I don't. So sometimes you as a student out there will know things I don't know. I need to know that. It makes me a better teacher. So I give my students a real heads up that you all know something out there that I don't know. And I'm here to learn that. And I think I might have some things that you don't know. And I hope you're here to learn that. And I hope you're here to learn from one another, because that, and I specifically see that valuable in the ESL students. I have, and you'll probably see if you went on my class roster, an incredibly large number of ESL students who get in and stay in my classes, because I love knowing what I don't know about their culture. And so I like to have them bring the content of what I'm doing in my class from their culture's perspective, and not just the culture that is here and dominant. So I think it helps facilitate them feeling safe in my class. Yeah.
The other thing that does, though, is it also sets up the routine of it for themselves. So even before they come into class, then after, when you're doing that repeatedly, they know coming into class, oh, she's going to be expecting this, so they start preparing even ahead of
That's
time.
right. It's an active listening strategy, and it's just, I don't know, it's just more visual when you say practice knowing, because they understand, and I'll use terms for people. If I see kind of a face that people are turning sideways and they're kind of scrunching up their face, I'll say, did you have a question? Because sometimes it's just an introvert out there who's actually thinking, and that's their thinking face. No, I'm good. Okay, great. If you have a question, please feel free to ask, or check me out after class. So I have a body of about 6 or 7 Asian students from different parts of Asia right now who come and talk to me after class, because they're not comfortable in the back of class raising their hand and talking. So they come and talk after class. It's a good thing on 2 parts. One, I don't understand their accent from far away because my hearing's not that awesome, and it also makes them not vulnerable. So, and they do it frequently. In fact, they did today. It was wonderful. So helping them practice know, and then communicate difficult messages to students. And one of the pieces I think is a difficult message is a student comes to you and says, oh, I have to go, I have, if it's a legitimate thing like, you know, a hospital or whatever, that's a whole nother thing. But sometimes it's, I have a game to go to, and I'm not talking a storm game, but you know, I need to go watch my brother or sister. Interesting. I wonder how long you're going to pay for an education and not show up for it. I just wonder. You still get to go, but in my class it's set up that your attendance is 95% of the class. So in the whole term, 95% of the whole term and 95% of each 2 hours. If you do that in my class, you don't have to take the final, because you've already performed in my class with that, not only attendance, but participation. Then I describe substantial participation. Asking questions. For my introverts, it's asking questions in small groups. I make sure to distinguish between my extroverts and introverts so they understand I'm looking for your different temperaments. For my, so asking questions, challenging things that I say, individually, after class, any form of challenge. Offering their own ideas is another part of substantive participation. Analyzing something that has been said, taking it apart, putting it in their own language, putting it in their own words. And I offer to my introverts always an opportunity before I ask a question, take out a piece of paper and respond to this question, because my introverts are not going to respond. My extroverts are like out there all over the place, and they're kind of talking over my introverts. And this also gives my second language students a chance to process with their converters the language that I'm talking about. So I'll repeat it, let them process it, write it down, give everybody enough time, and then their responses. Today, I'll give you an example. Today was a values class. So everyone was to write on 5 separate pieces of paper a value. And that word translated into your own language sounds much different. So we talked about what some values are in general, not anybody's values, but here's some people value family, some people value work ethic and things like that. Oh, okay. So then people were able to do that. Write them down, okay? And then I had them give a value away. Number them 1 through 5, your top most important, give 1 away. Okay, now give 2 away at a time, so they actually have 2 left. Now, choose 1. So the value then that you chose as most important, now you defend it. And every one of my ASL students were able to defend their value because it got down to incremental. It wasn't this big project. You know, pick 5 values, choose 1, and, you know, it was little at a time. So I try to make it like if I'm sitting in their country and I'm trying to learn from their language perspective, that helps me. And coming from someone who is completely illiterate, I can actually relate to it to a degree, if that makes sense. Okay, so again, I haven't gotten very far. So we're going to talk about the areas of entitlement, victimization, laziness, and just aloof behaviors. Do we ever see those in class?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And I think they're, you all know this just from your teaching education, Bloom's taxonomy, but I do have another level, and I thought I had copied it off, but I'll send it to you. It adds 4 components to it I had never seen before. I have the triangle.
Is it the new?
It's, I think it might be. I don't know if you have the, I'm going to open it up for you just so you see it, okay? And see if this is the one you're thinking of. So on top of, let's see. Sorry. On top of remember, understand, apply, analyze, and evaluate, which is the old one, it had those pieces, is basing that out of factual knowledge versus conceptual knowledge, procedural, and medic. Okay, does that make sense? And the examples of it is what I love. See, one of the things that I want to do is I want to give as many tools to us to process information to them. So I show students the Bloom's taxonomy. I want them to know, and I'll show you the triangle that I show them real quick. I know I'm hopping back and forth. That's part of this random thing that you... I show them this one, okay? Because I let them know where we're hoping to head someday. Okay, and again, I can send all this in the PowerPoint for you, okay? And I show them this one. Yes, this is what you get in grade school. You just get that rote sort of knowledge. Hopefully you comprehend it, and that's when you do your tests and your spelling tests and your math tests and things like that. Application is the minimum requirement at a college level for me. And that's why I would say practice knowing what you learn so you can say how you're going to use it, because if you can't say how you're going to use it, I'm ineffective, and I don't want to be ineffective. I want to be very effective. And then analysis, identifying the components, rearranging them, taking them apart. What other places would that work? Okay? And then I'm kind of a sticky wicket. I want us to bump it up a peg. At Chemeketa, I want our quality to be so high that when they go to a 4-year degree, they're ready for it. I do not want to ill-equip. I just felt really bad when I found out I could have been reading all the time if an instructor was there to aware that I was illiterate and not just, so I walk around the class a lot. I just look at what they're doing. If they're doing an assessment or they're doing just a small writing assignment or whatever, I do a lot of walking around. And if there's no understanding, I'm going to spend some minutes with that student and help them understand. And I know that you do too. I shouldn't say it like I do it, no one else does it. But the evaluation part, the reflection on something is the critical thinking. And I'm going to hand you out another handout. It's called General Teaching Methods, Applying and Promoting Critical Thinking Skills. I think this is a good way in terms of focusing some questions for students to help them with this analytical part. I've got a whole nother thing that I could also send on email that has to do with this. So I think letting the students know where we're going with education is really helpful to them. I never, ever start a class without letting them know the critical thinking skills that I'm looking for. I want them to learn how to ask questions that clarify. I want them to learn how to ask questions that challenge evidence and reason. I want them to learn how to ask questions that challenge consequences and implications. I want them to learn how to ask questions that challenge assumptions, because I don't want to throw out something that they can't challenge. So under all of these headings, there's 6 levels of questioning. I give them a handout, and here's some possible questions that you can ask. And that way they're prepared to ask me questions not like why, when, what, where only. I want them to be able to challenge and have substantive questions back to me. Because if I'm not prepared to answer the hard question, I'm not prepared at all as an instructor. So that's a big component to what helps. Here's an example. I would just do for clarity. Recognize that thinking is always more or less clear. Assume that no thought is fully understood except to the extent one can elaborate, illustrate, and exemplify it. So questions that focus on clarity is, could the thinker elaborate on the topic? So, hey, Ms. DeMeyer, could you elaborate on that topic? I don't think I understand it. Or could you provide an example or an illustration to that point? The message that was conveyed is this, am I getting that? And so if a student tells me something back, I will actually use this back to clarify what they just said, because I want to exemplify using Socratic questioning to help them understand. And I have all of these on here on this PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through all of them. Here is the crux of what this is about today, and that is that notion about helping students hear hard messages. I'll give you an example. I have a gentleman here from, he's actually going to Oregon State, and he's an engineer. He's so bright, so sweet. And he said to me today, he goes, I want to leave early on Thursday. And I said, oh, okay. I have a 95% attendance and participation in order not to take the final. And he's already missed a day, and so you get 1 day. It's a freebie. If you're not here 95% of Thursday, which is the last day of class, you'll have to take the final. Oh, I don't want to take the final. I said, oh, okay. So you decide. You have complete permission. I make that very simple. He goes, I'll pick my brother up a little bit later. He can get his luggage. He just made a different choice based on the options. I say the clear example. If I let you off because you're a great student and you're really smart and you're really sweet, and then I have to do that for everybody. And I really think that if we hold to the standard, we get what we practice as instructors. And so I do, and I did, and he's more than glad. And I said, by the way, I will try to end our class a little early that day, okay? Just for you, because I really appreciate that. But of the class, you got to be here 95%.
We found that when I was working with people in transition, is that sometimes they weren't even aware that they could ask for an option.
Yeah.
If the doctor called and said, we can see you at 2 o'clock, they would just say, okay.
Right.
And we
It's a
taught
really
them,
good
and some
point.
teachers said, well, I have a class until 4, and then they found out, oh, well, could you come the next day?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but
Yeah.
they weren't even aware of the, that
Options.
it was an option.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if somebody said, come at this time, they just went, okay, and then they would come back to us and say, I have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another.
Yeah, and I have another motive about this. The majority of our students, and correct me if I'm wrong, are on financial aid.
Yeah.
And that means that it is literally something that we're all paying for. So I'm stepping that game up. I want you to get an education. I don't want you to walk through these halls, have a piece of paper at the end that doesn't mean anything, that you can't get a job with. And guess what? I'm teaching job skills by being present. And so that's my other motive too. So I'm pretty big on that.
I have a question.
Mhm.
With my ESL students, I don't want to change this chair. They often they're farm workers,
Right.
and they have to work overtime,
Mhm.
or now that it's becoming spring or something
Right.
like that. So
Right.
of course, in the beginning, I tell them, please, come every day,
Right.
try and be on
Right.
time and all that. But a lot of them don't, of course.
Mhm.
And I know my classroom management skills are not good. Some of them come late, and then they come in and
Mhm.
hey, to say hi to their friends and all this, and
Mhm.
I'm doing something, I'm talking,
Right.
and, you know,
Mhm.
but how do you deal with people that, you know, they have to work, I know it's an issue,
Mhm.
what do you say? And, but, you know, and when they do talk in class, I say, hey, you know, you're
Mhm.
paying me to speak Spanish,
Mhm.
but I'm getting paid, what about you, you know?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
but how do you deal with
I would
stuff
first
like
take a person who would be disruptive off to the side first, and once I've had the discussion with them, and now they do that in public, I would do that in public then, after that. And I would say, okay, you know, I have a couple, Anthony, help me understand how you're making it okay to come in and disrupt the class when we're trying to learn. We're all here trying to learn. It's for the benefit of all of us. And I would just not, it would be posing the question. I'm not asking for an answer, but I'm gonna pose the question. And it's unacceptable. The first time, I'd take them off to the side and say, hey, I know you're really friendly and you have a lot of buds in here, but when you come into class late, I expect you to come in, I expect you to sit down. Does that work for you? Because if it doesn't, don't come in. Do not come into my class like that.
And what about the fact that, you know, they often work and
And-
don't come to class?
And I think that's a really valid point. I had a girl come up to me this last week. She went to work in a nursery, okay, and she says to me, Faye, I'm going to go interview at a nursery, and I don't think I'll be able to come in on time or whatever. And I said, you know what? I am pro-job. I'm a workaholic, to be honest, and I still, you know, I did migrant work actually from 80 to 90, managed a blueberry field while I was raising my kids. And so, I mean, I get work. And I said, you know, work is first. You know, if I believe work is first. When you're in school, that is your work. And so I take this as serious as you take your work. So you might have to choose work over school. Because at the end of a course, if you did not attend the class, you did not participate, you didn't go to school. You just attended a course, you got your financial aid, and now you get the benefits of both. That's not okay. And we need to set clear boundaries around that. And that's just, and it is a classroom management piece. When people come in and out, they're here sometimes, they're not here sometimes, I can't do as good a job with that person who's absent. So I'm going to be meeting the needs of the people who come. I'm not going to meet the needs of the people who don't come. And I just be really clear about my job here. My job is to open up an opportunity for instruction that allows them to practice knowing more information. I am not teaching them what to think, but I want to teach them how. Because when I teach them how to think, when they leave and they go to their jobs, they go to their families, they know how to think. My job is not to teach them what to think. So I'm really clear about my purpose. And that helps me do the management a lot better. So it's not personal. I make sure it's not personal. And I'm kind in my delivery, but I'm clear. And I have 95% attendance. I do have 95% attendance.
It reminds me that, you know, what skill do you want them to have?
At the end of the course.
Right. And so is there something that you can focus on there? So if they come in late and they're not disruptive, or they make, as you said, they make choices around, I can only be here for part of it, or because of, I have to make choices that I work
Right.
as opposed to come. Okay, so then what skills around that do you want to have in terms of explaining it, or coming at a different time or whatever? So I would look at what skill.
Well, I had cancer last year, and I really kind of relate to this whole, oh my gosh, are you available sort of thing. And I got diagnosed in January, so it was right at the beginning of the class. It was about 2 weeks into it. And I had my surgery in February, and I had it on a Thursday, and I came back to work the following Tuesday. And it was hard. I had somebody drive me because I was still, you know, not as awesome as I could have been. And I basically toughed it out until spring break, and that is when I actually rested. And I got really sick over spring break. I mean, I got C. diff. They gave me a disease from the antibiotic, and I was in a hospital for 5 days over spring break, literally the whole spring break. When I got back out, school started again. So it was just like, huh?
So you can relate to what I was talking about earlier.
Totally relate. And so, you know, I get that. And so part of me says to them, as an example, as well as in the words, because I don't want to be a lack of example, say it and then hypocritically not do it, is life shows up and you show up. And, you know, I've had a funeral on Tuesday and come back to school on Thursday. People need to do what they need to do, but I have a standard in the classroom and I hold that standard. One Here's an example of an incident where I would make an exception. Girl came to the door one time. She's waving out there, and I'm like, I'm right in the middle of class, and I rarely do this, but for some reason I just had this feeling I should go to the door. I went to the door. The gal it was in the dark, so I couldn't really see. She had a neck brace on, scars all over. She just had put her face through a windshield, right? She just got out of the hospital. She's at school telling me that she just got out of the hospital and she can't sit in class because she's all broken. I'm like, honey, go home. You're clear. Okay, that is an example of somebody who has integrity. Does that make sense? I had another person go on vacation over spring break and come back 2 weeks late into class. Now we only have the one, but that was when we waited for two. And did I miss anything? And I'm not joking. This is what I said. Actually, no, we have been waiting for you this whole 4 weeks, just doing nothing. I'm so glad you finally came. Thank you. And he looked at me, and I said, look, I said, we have been in this class for 4 different times, 2 hours each. And I'm telling you right now, you missed too much, and you can't stay. Easily. That is a flagrant disregard for our classes, this credentialed school, and a degree completion. I won't tolerate it. And I think we get what we practice. I really do. I get some pretty good reviews from students being direct. I think we're not.
Students appreciate it too.
They do.
Being up.
Yes, they do. And we're not helping them in work later, in their marriages, in their parenting. We're not helping them if we let them off. Does that make sense? And there's that time like that. I wouldn't care if it was male, female, old, young, that kind of thing happens. You're not, I had another woman just get diagnosed with face cancer, was going to have a big old, like, dude, however, and I worked it out with the school to how she could complete that course. She had 3 weeks before the end. She was going to have that we work with stuff like that. Choosing work over school, you have to make a choice sometime. I remember my first years not going back to college. I didn't go back till I was 33. I had to choose work. I didn't have the money to go to school, and I had to choose work. And then I found out if I drove school bus in the morning and school bus in the afternoon, I could go to school during the day, and so I got to do both. And that was a really good way to get it accomplished. So I hope that answered the question. Yeah, without being.
Well, right. I mean, I've been in the same situation too.
I bet you have.
Of course.
Yeah.
But being in class every day is just something, we as Americans know,
Mm-hmm.
but these are immigrant students that maybe they don't understand that, that the value or the, what they're going to get on a daily basis of being there every day and studying.
And that may
So,
be, yeah.
Maybe it's a cultural thing, I don't know.
It may be, and when I was working with mental health, I worked for Polk County Mental Health for 15 years. I would not use a schedule like I would use a schedule at school, and I would just go to the neighborhoods where my Latino people were that I was serving, and I would just go to whoever's home. I didn't make it, you have to be here at 10 at my office. I went to their home and I served them, and that was a cultural piece. However, we don't get that option, and if you can't be here, then go online school. Go on an online. I know it's harder with ESL, but I'd go on online, so you can do yes and. And there are ways that this school has made it possible for you, even as an ESL, to do your job in school at night, or your job night, if you're a night person, in school. Yes and. I don't know about you, but I worked full-time and went to school all the time.
So did I, yeah. So.
I think that's
So
the
it's-
thing, it's not can they come or not come, because that's a choice they're gonna have to make. It's what are the consequences of that, and what are you expecting of me in return?
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand that you have to go work.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there.
We have.
However, then I expect that when you come back, you're not gonna ask that I do extra work,
Mm-hmm.
that I give you a grade that you don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
All those that's the conversation I have with students, because that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of the,
Yeah.
did I miss anything,
Mhm.
or can I make this up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the class had a discussion about that. You
Yeah.
weren't here for the discussion.
Right.
You can't make that up.
Right.
What do you teach?
I teach psychology, women's studies, stress management,
Mm. Love it.
freshman year experience.
Mm-hmm. I would love to get in, start to teach first year experience. I do that for another school. It's awesome.
Yeah, so these kinds of things come
Yeah.
up.
It's great. Yeah, and again, it goes back to what are we trying to teach them? Are we trying to teach them that it's okay to do the minimum? If we are, we're doing a pretty good job. And I'm finding that people coming into a 4-year degree, because that's the other school I teach for, they're not prepared because people are so lax here. And that's not cool. They can't read, they can't write, and I understand not being able to read and write. I had this is another hard conversation. Gentleman coming into the university, and all the communication that he had was, it was vowel-free. There's no other way to put it, vowel-free. And so I just sat down and I said, you know what, great student, just a wonderful person. I said, how do you think you're doing on a scale of 1 to 10? He said, about a 2. And I said, oh, good, because that's about where I think you are. Would you mind if I referred you to, and I went from a university to here, would you mind if I referred you to an assessment? I called a counselor here, set him up with an assessment, got him some literacy classes, and he came back into the 4-year experience. He wasn't ready. But do you see what I mean? That's a hard conversation to have with the student. Because what if he said, I think I'm doing an 8? Right. Now I'm going to have to deliver that message. It's my job to deliver. If I really care about his degree completion at the end, and every other student in that university's degree completion, I've got to do that upfront work. And so that was a really hard conversation. And turns out he had been in special ed for almost all of his education. And a school that takes you without preparing you it's mean. It's just not right, and I'm not going to be a part of that. I can't ignore this, and from a psychology background, I don't ignore this. I have students that I can tell by the words that they say and the emotions they display on their face, or sometimes don't display, that I'm going to deliver different messages in different ways to different people. To the thinkers, I can just say it. It's blunt, it's boom. To the feelers, I'm going to use the values of harmony to get at that conversation. So looking at temperament sometimes, and sometimes you don't know, and you would know with ESL students where I might not know, to be honest with you, because you have more insight. Does that make sense? Just because of your involvement and immersion in the culture. So that would actually be a cool conversation to have with you one of these days, to find out what I don't know about that. But introverts, I am not going to call an introvert that I know is painfully shy, as painful as it is for me to shut up. It's that hard for them to talk, and make them stand up and talk. It's just me. Although I do break them out in teams, they present as teams, and they have to come up because I want them to practice. But in a team setting, it's a little safer than all by myself. In my psychology, human interaction, they have a 10-minute presentation. And I tell them at the beginning of the syllabus, 10 minutes to let the class know who you are. Because people are differently oriented in this way, they can do a videotape, they can write something where somebody else reads it. I'm not trying to put them on Front Street. I'm not trying to make them unsure of themselves. But I want, at the end of that class, if it's human interaction, I want the human interaction. And as a result, I get it. And so once they know, now I've had students right from the beginning of class drop out because that was too difficult. Drop out because the 95% is too difficult. But I want to know up front. And I really don't have many drop out. I have about a 96% start-finish rate, which is really good. So that helps. This temperament thing really helps. Oh, the other one is the random. I'm random in case it hasn't become painfully aware. And I use PowerPoints a lot just to keep me on track. Okay, I don't refer to them much, but I know where I want to go with them. But the random student can go with me like this. But that person who's a judger, who likes those routine and that, where are you going with this, lady? I make sure that I have that. I'll have my handouts. I'll have my lesson plan so I know right from the beginning where I'm going. And that really helps them because they know at the end of the day they accomplished something and their sense of achievement is really high. So I try to make sure that I'm doing that. Does that make sense? And so that has become a criticism over time that I kept taking in and going, okay, I could improve this area, I could improve this area. Yeah, back in the day. But has that been something you guys have implemented? I know it's natural in psychology. Has it?
I really have not dealt with something like this. I'm hesitant because I think I would probably or possibly be overcritical of students. In fact, today I got a number of books here from the library. I didn't know that they had things related to education here. I don't know why, but I just hesitate because I think I'm too critical or come off wrong to students, and that has been to my detriment before. So I kind of tolerate a lot. And my class is non-credit actually, but I still, we want to get them accustomed to the idea of going to school every day and doing homework and, of course, continuing on.
Right.
In English and in education. So I kind of back off just for my own personality.
I totally understand that.
And plus there's just the simple language barrier.
Right.
I'm teaching beginning students. They don't understand a lot of what I say, and but I do have like 4 or 5 excellent students, and they're there every day. They're right up in front because I tell them move in front, don't sit in the back and get lost. And I don't have to tell them anything, but there's others that you keep on repeating the same thing over and over, and they still don't get it, or they think what they're saying is okay when I'm telling them something different, and there's not this connection. And so I'm just.
That would be hard.
Maybe you can give me a lot of insight, but then again, I'm just kind of. I think I'm a little too much of a perfectionist and for them, so I want to hold myself back.
Yeah. No, I think you're really talking about the difference between student retention, right, and enabling. I mean, student retention is important in any school. I value it. I mean, if I don't retain students in my class and we get below a certain amount, my class shuts down. So
that is an issue in ESL.
I bet it is.
For a number of reasons, immigration law, the economy, the demographics of the state and such, or maybe me, or the difficulty of learning a language.
So my very first comment to them, if I'm in your position, is, guys, because they'll usually come that first day, because signing up for a class and attending initially gets you that.
Well, that's actually not true in my case.
Oh, what happens?
Well, they seem to have.
Are they getting any financial benefit from being in your class? Are they getting financial aid?
No, it's just the course only costs like $70, and so that's really.
Who's paying for that course though? Usually them, individual? Okay, so there's a financial benefit. So the first thing that I would do is the what's in it for me. And I would specifically, and I haven't gone down because the PowerPoint will talk about that, specifically important for Gen Xers and millennials. They've got to know what's in it for them, okay? So if you can't put out the with them, what's in it for me, then you're probably not going to get very far with them. And so I will begin to find out, why are you here? What do you expect out of this? And if they say, I expect an A, come up with something else that you expect out of this class. I'll be back with you, okay? So your language in your ESL will have to initially come up with figuring out, who are you? Why are you here? What do you expect to get out of the class, okay? When you do that, you get an ownership of this class for them. And I do that in every class. Introduction, hey, what's your name? What program are you in? What's your favorite cartoon or whatever you want to use? And what do you expect to get out of the class? And if they say, I don't expect anything, I say, I can fulfill that as a joke. And then I say, I want you to practice expecting something, I'll come back to you. Because remember, I've already told them that you're going to have to practice knowing, okay? We get so little out of people because we expect so little out of them. So I have the bar up here, right? And when they jump it, I know they're standing up. But if I keep lowering the bar and then they jump it, they're on their belly and I haven't helped them. So I'm going to keep the bar up, and they may jump and fall, and that's okay with me because I'm going to be there to support, but I'm not going to lower the bar ever. And the bar is attending at minimum, substantive participation at minimum, okay, and make a choice. You will have to make a choice. If you can't, you can't, and I understand, and there's no judgment there. But in this class, make a choice. because I'm here and I'm going to come showing up every day. I'm showing up for life. And if I'm not here, I'm probably dead. That's what I tell them. If I'm not here, I'm probably dead. I think I've missed maybe a day and a half, maybe 2 days in 15 years. I mean, it's been amazingly, I've come pretty sick before. Okay, so I don't know if you have these students in your class, the attention deficit or the hyperactive student or the fidgeter, I call it, the one in the back. But I have that as part of my DNA, fetal alcohol effect. So what I try to do is I try to give them lots of changes in like right now, this is a lot of lecture. I would never do this much lecture. We would be in small groups. We would be, moving around. And with 2 people, we are in a small group. We would just be doing a lot of change-up sort of things. Because the fidgeters need to move around. The talkers need to talk. And the non-talkers need to mix with talkers, okay? And so one of the ways that I promote the non-talkers to talk is I give them that chance to write it down, and then I say to everyone who feels a little bit struggling to talk in your small group with your one other person, would you share what you wrote down first? And then have the person it's easy for them to talk to share second. Because what we know is when introverts talk, extroverts shut up, and when extroverts shut up, introverts will talk. And I'm not trying to say it in a rude way, but just let the people who don't normally talk say it first. And that helps initiate that a little bit more. So I believe you guys are probably going to think, this is Faye, you've gone all fishy on me. I send all midterms and finals home as an open book. If they have not read, I'm their worst enemy. If they have read, they're like, yes, I'm a reader. And I let them do it in groups. And I'll tell you why, especially ESL, especially hard to learn kids. If they do it in a group, they'll have debates on the answer, and they'll learn more. Even if they haven't read the book, they'll have to fish it out, and they'll learn more. And I do pop quizzes in the classroom. Sometimes I'll have them turned in. Sometimes it's just for their edification. Okay, I want you to find these and these and these terms, and I want you to define it, and we talk about how you're going to use it, okay? So they'll get in groups, and they unpack it. In my Psych in the Workplace class, at the very beginning, I break them out into teams of 5 to 6 people. For the entire term, every Tuesday, they present. So I give them their assignment on Thursday. On Tuesday, they're presenting. And they're presenting course content. I give them a question, and they present it in a PowerPoint. And they have to come professionally dressed because it's Psych in the Workplace. They're getting ready to do human interaction in the workplace. I want to teach them that. The feedback on that class is phenomenal. They love it. They hated me at the beginning for making them do that. But I give them things that aren't even in the book. So right now, the book doesn't cover civil rights law. And civil rights law is huge for the workplace. So if they don't learn how to work within a legal EEOC equipped environment, we're setting them up for failure. I don't want an adverse worker being sent out from Temecula. I want a good worker. Does that make sense? So those are kinds of the kinds of things that I do. I don't care if they present really lousy, because they're going to get better. That first day, I'm not judging their presentation. I'm judging that they work together as a team. So the very first time, first leader, trade leadership every week. So everyone gets to lead at least twice. So you learn to lead and you learn to follow, okay? So that works really well. And that, for the ADHD and the ADD people, that kind of process works good, because the random people, like ADHDs, they will learn what they're good at, usually presenting, and the J's, or those people who like organizational structure, they'll learn, they know the PowerPoint usually, and they know the tech. So then they share that information. They teach the other person the tech, and this person teaches the other person the presentation. And at the end, they're all friends, which is, and here's the other thing. At the end of every course, I give them a team evaluation, which I didn't make a copy of. I wished I had. A team evaluation, say, rate your team. Okay? I know, and I watch in their online back and forth whether or not they're talking to one another. And I know by who's presenting what, who did what. But I want them to rate their team, because that adds some value to me. If you rated them low, why? Okay? yes, and if you rated them high, why? So I want the good and the bad. Okay, this was the generational. It's going to be in this PowerPoint, and I'm not going to go through it, except I want to look at, this is who's coming in right now. And just so you know, unless somebody's just come in from, and even, I'm even seeing it from people right over from Mexico, the kids that in the millennial area, which I should go back just a second. So age range, boop, sorry. I'm so excited, you guys, oh, there they are. I'm so excited about the millennials. This is a great group. They're about 75 million strong right now. And they are going to basically be the ones taking care of us. And so I'm kind of glad, I'm excited about it. But they're very traditionalist oriented. They like procedure, they like structure. They didn't like how their parents did it, so they're wanting to do something different. The Gen Xers is a little harder to teach crowd, I'm not gonna lie. Because they came out of the baby boomer thing, they didn't like that. Everything's about work ethic and, you know, everything's about, you know, materialism. So they just kind of chilled, you know, kind of a type B, almost straight out. So
More skeptical of things.
really skeptical, which I like because there's the question asker. So I try to find the benefit in each one of these generational types. And as you know, because so many people lost their jobs, we have all of these generations back in. We really do. I found some amazing traditionalists in the classroom right now. And they're going to be working until they die. And there's no doubt about it. So I want to give them that upper level because they already have that life experience. I entertain the life experience of everyone that walks into the classroom. And I know that even though I didn't have academia, I had some good life experience. And no one brought that out. And I felt odd all the time. And I don't want people from another country, I don't want people from another, in this country culture to feel odd. I'll take the man or woman that just got out of prison, for example. Dude, I've had people come up, do you remember me from DOC? And I'm like, yeah, you're a student. Anything else? Let's just do, you're a student, because that's what it's about. And it's just my passion to make sure that people know that they're valued. There's no worth difference in anyone. I don't care what you did. I just care what you're going to do. What will you do now, you know, with an opportunity? And I feel like that's what people afforded me as an opportunity. So this will be fun to go back on and to see, because this also helps us understand how I'm going to communicate with my students at different levels. Does that make sense? That's why I've added the interaction and the communication piece. And then baby boomers, they're fun. But you know, the Gen Xers and the millennials all grew up with teamwork. And so they're much better than the Gen Xers who were all, I do it my own, you know. These people are very, yeah, direct is a good word. That's the word. But millennials, teamwork, this is a funny visual of how they're going to work. And that's what I'm trying to prepare students that are leaving Chemeketa to go to a four-year degree. You guys are going to go into a global economy. More than any other generation I've ever taught, you're going into a global economy. I want you ready. What does that look like? So that's a big deal. And then there's another kind of a funny one down here. Do you guys, do these messages resonate with you? Be smart, you're special. They had a lot of you're special. A lot of emphasis in this crowd of self-esteem building. You know, we don't have a self-esteem problem. We actually have a problem of people understanding that you're not better or worse. That's the problem we have, because people are making it okay to take other people's things, hit other people, look people now, you looking at me, you looking at me. So we don't have a self-esteem problem. We have a self-concept problem, and that's how other people view us, but we don't have a self-esteem problem. How is the cell phone in your classrooms? How is that?
It's not a problem in my classroom.
Hi, what?
It's not a problem in my classroom.
Yeah.
It is in mine on
Okay.
occasion, even though
Uh-huh.
I, you know, had it in my syllabus and I've asked them, yeah, somebody's cell phone always goes off. And in fact, last night I was giving in a test and a guy took out his cell phone and I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I asked him for it. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because the actual World Wide Web's there. I mean, there's not a question out there that you and I could ask that's not going to be on this. There is a a cool thing coming up. You can actually use their smartphones to test them.
Well,
And
I've had them check things on it.
Yeah.
Two things. I don't want them to take personal calls or
Right.
texting.
right,
Just as if, I always say, if somebody came to the door, it's
Yeah.
my job
right,
to go in. So if somebody calls you, it'll be my job to answer it.
right.
That takes
Very
time.
good.
And then, but there are things
Very
I'll say, if you've got a smartphone, check this out,
Mhm.
and then they can interact with that, so.
Yeah, I
I'll
do
use
too.
it to the-
Same with laptops up. If you're not taking notes on a Word doc, not on the internet, put it down. I'm like squirrel. I get distracted, and so I just use myself as the bad guy. Say, you're on your cell phone right now. Help me understand how that's contributing to the class. I'll call it out because I've already told them. If I see you with your cell phone, and we aren't actively doing it together, then I'm going to call you out in public. So don't do that to me, okay? That's your issue. It's not mine. Does that make sense? So I call them out in public. Sir, ma'am, if I don't remember their name, because sometimes right at the beginning you don't, help me understand how that's helping right now. Because I see two people looking over your shoulder at your cell phone. So it's not just distracting you. This is, I thought, a very funny visual of the sort of, isn't that hilarious? Raised by parents believing in self-importance, optimistic yet practical, hopeful of the future. Again, I'm excited about this crowd. I really am. Let's see if there's anything else that. 5 minutes between soccer and piano. What do you opt? Isn't that great? What do you want to do with your free time? And that's kind of how it is. You know, very, very difficult stopping and pausing and reflecting. I kind of feel like class is a really safe place for that, and maybe it's because of psych, I don't know. But I teach SOS and criminology and critical thinking and human services and general ed first year sequence at another school, and I offer that kind of reflection in all of them. It's okay to stop and to pause and to reflect back and write it down. An example today was goals, values, and how do you know that you're shooting for your values? If you haven't written them down somewhere, how do you know you're even close to them? And if you don't have them, then somebody will come alongside you and define you. And if you don't have values, it'll be easy for them to do that. And has that happened? And of course, then people pop up with ways that that has happened to them. Gangs are a classic example of somebody clarifying your values for you. Because you didn't take the time to do it yourself. Help me pass the new governor's test. Oh, my school passed the new governor's test. While you're at it, make the governors take the new governor's test. Isn't that funny? Isn't that hilarious?
Is that a recent?
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that cute? It's just crazy. Other characteristics. I thought this was interesting because now we're so technologically savvy. Isn't that hilarious? What's this for? This antique. And this is kind of fun. The web usage, again, it goes back at the informational versus transactional. Okay. Our usage versus students' usage. Online habits and behavior. The younger students, the more internet and computer. 82%. This was 2008. 82% were online daily. What do you think it is now? And about how much a week? What would you guess?
I think they're not offline ever.
I think you're right.
I think they are connected 24. They may be sleeping.
Right.
But
With the phone right there.
right
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
available 24.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know. But
I'm on the internet.
that's how they get.
and
they
average.
don't watch TV. They watch the internet.
That's
I
right.
think they get everything.
Mhm.
on there.
Absolutely. And do you guys have Facebooks, either of you? Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I'm on Facebook at least, whether it's a flicker on my phone or whatever, and just a quick, and I don't status update. I went for coffee. I try to update significance if I can. So there's a reflection of that. But that's a big deal. And so I think that kind of depends in the classroom of how you, how much energy you want to put into the internet. I don't put a lot into it there because I know they're getting plenty elsewhere. But their research, this is another part in terms of expectation. When they're doing their presentations, if there's 5 people in the group, they have to have 5 sources. Why do you think that would be a good value?
Forces them to go out and find different.
One person can use the book, and then remember they're trading leadership, so that will change. One person used the book and 4 other sources. It does. It forces them, and they can't use Wikipedia, although it's
It
getting,
avoids that kind
yeah.
of
So
using one.
edu.gov.org. It helps a lot. Just trying to think if there's any other pieces there. I'm just trying to think if there's anything here besides what we've already talked about. This is going to sound odd, but I think it probably is more pertinent to yours. My goal is to teach psychology, but in the context of the world, not just me. I mean, it's not even my opinion. What are you seeing out there? So if I'm bringing a concept to the table that day, or that, like values right now they're going out and they're looking on advertisement, and they're looking in, politics, and they're looking for that concept in all these other venues because they're out there in them. And so I want them to start seeing threads that run through the topic that I'm teaching, whether it be criminology or psych or soc or critical thinking. Where do you see critical thinking happening? Where don't you see it? Who do you see doing it? How many people are challenging assumptions today? How many people are challenging consequences? I mean, I think right now we don't see more than 2 years, maybe 4 years out in front of us. That's not a historical perspective, right? So lots of pieces like that.
I have my students in my classes do a presentation, and I call it show and tell, because when you're in kindergarten, you bring things from outside that relate to the class.
Very
so
cool.
I have them do that to get them to avoid compartmentalizing. Well, I'm here in psychology, so I'm
Very
thinking about
cool.
psychology. But so, like what you're talking about, so
Weave it in.
anything we've talked about, go find an example of it in your everyday life and bring it to class, and then there's a little presentation to do on that.
Very cool.
They have to do a couple each term. And that is, it's so exciting.
Don't
You
they love
said-
it?
Yeah.
They do.
And they see it too. I mean,
And then they know
because they
each
might-
other too better.
right, and they might do it not even realizing it, but when you assign it, then they're more aware that
Yeah.
this is what we were talking about in class.
Yeah, it has more purposefulness to it, doesn't it? It's a deliberate move out there. This piece is not new to anyone who's educating. Nevertheless, as a hyperactive attention deficit kid, I cannot express the value of having a kinesthetic, auditory, and visual way to get information. So that student who is auditory, they don't need to hear me, they need to hear themselves say it. So I'll have them present what they're over there yakking about. Come up here, come stand with me. Because trust me, if they're out there yapping, they want to be up front. I wouldn't have the quiet person do that. That would just be hard. But come on, come stand with me. And I don't know if this would help with ESL, but if I wish I knew more about speaking in Spanish or any other second language, because I would actually benefit from having another student stand with me and help me instruct this to their peers. I would love that. It wouldn't minimize me at all. It just enhance what I'm doing. So I just get great pleasure out of just basically fanning them into flames. You have this ember inside you. You're excited about life. Bring it, because maybe you'll be a teacher someday. You're it. You know what I mean? I'm looking to you in future generations. I'm basically trying to work myself out of a job. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to do. Work myself out of a job and work them into one. But that's how I see auditory, kinesthetic, and visual learning happening as much as possible. The thing that I gave you about fogging for me is really if a student, I'll give you an example. This is a hard one. In the team experience, I say to the students, I want you to know if you're not working with the team, okay, then it's like coming to work and not helping your coworkers and not meeting the project goals. So I make that as a broad statement. Don't say it to any one person. So this couple was partnered with this other couple, and they just weren't showing up for the experience. And so I just took them aside one day and I said, hey, you guys, you know, we talked about team. I just want you to know that I don't give a team grade. I give a grade for people who work. You get a grade for people who work. And so I just want you to know. I took them aside. And then one day I had made a plan to let the team work, and I was going to go do a presentation at a CBW. And this same guy said, why do you get to leave? Because I had said, if anyone's planning to leave their team, don't. This is set aside for you. And I had like 2 or 3 weeks notice to let him know this was going to happen. I said, say more. This is a really big deal. When somebody criticizes you in class, find out what the nature of the criticism is, because it could be valid. I said, say more. Well, I just don't like your snarky comments that we can't leave. And I said, okay, can say more. I'm just trying to sort of let myself decompress inside and say, okay, is there validity in this comment? I see where you could think that. Now, did I leave the team unattended? Did I leave not having a process? Did I not plan? Because if I didn't, call me out. You have that right. No. I said, well, is there anything else? No. Okay. If there is, will you call me or text me? And those 2 people never came back. They embarrassed themselves. But the point is, if it is wrong, they have that right. They're paying for their education. They have that right. The other students went, wow. See, I'm doing a psych in the workplace class. In the workplace, do people confront you like that sometimes? Oh, yeah. Do you need to know what you're about and what your standards are? Yes. Does that make sense? So those things will happen. And I want us to be as qualified to handle criticism as we're expecting the students to be. That's a hard place to be. I got used to it, to be honest with you, while working in corrections with all men, because they're pretty blunt. They would come rushing in. What are you doing, DeMeyer? I'm like, what's your question for me? Well, I just want to know what you're doing. I'm working. Oh, okay. That's just how they are. Off-putting sometimes. These are the staff. And they're used to intimidating. And you don't need to be intimidated by your student. If a student is unruly, I've never had it happen at Schmeketa. I did have a student at the university one night be unruly, and I actually just left, took my purse and left. I said, be right back, and I just went to the front desk and I said, I need a student removed, and they said, they named the student, this one, and I go, yeah, how'd you know? Apparently it had happened before. I said, okay. And they just removed him from the class because he was intimidating the students behind him with his intimidation. And he worked for DHS, and he was an investigator for Child Protective Service. I know. So go figure, right? Anyway, so that does happen, you know, but you don't have to take that. Have their best interest in mind. Focus on the action, not the person. Be cool. If you refuse criticism, you will end up in poverty and disgrace. And if you accept criticism, you're on the road to fame. I love that proverb. Okay, so what's the problem? Identifying the real issues. Here are some of the problems that I've seen in classes, and you guys tell me, under the entitlement, these are some of the problems that I see. Family drama, this notion of I'm unique, no showing, late work or sloppy work, last minute demands, like you were saying, makes me work harder, you know, and cultural issues and gender issues, okay? Victimization, the definition of playing the victim. Behaviors of playing the victim yourself, your others, similar to the family drama. And I did bring these are ways for you to be able to tell by what's being said if they're playing the victim, okay? And that, yeah, I thought that would be helpful. And we all play the victim, let's be honest. We have at times, okay? And so if somebody says, so if I say to you, I go, so Gwen, that, what's your name again? Jan, boy, she sure blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm the victim. You're rescuing me by listening, and she's the bad guy. Mm-hmm. So we do it all the time in our culture. So I'm a big one on saying, if I started that with Gwen, oh, thank you, Gwen Ellen. If I started that with Gwen Ellen, then she would say, you know what, you got a problem with Jan. You go talk to Jan. You see what I'm saying? Go real direct. So I see students in class who play that with their teams. Like, you need to go talk to so-and-so, because that's what you need to do in the workplace. I'm trying to equip them. You're reading them. Yeah. So, oh, sorry. So, but we can play the victim with ourselves. Have you ever had a situation where at work you just weren't feeling respected, and then you go, nobody respects me at work, and so you're telling yourself, you're rescuing yourself, and then of course, oh, maybe if I was a better worker, I just suck. Now you're also your own persecutor. Yeah. So our negative thoughts, right? This is all that whole notion about cognitive restructuring. And so we can come into a different position. We don't have to have those attitudes. I just think that's a really important thing. And my family system grew up like that, you guys. That drama triangle was how my family system grew up. And I just don't want to practice it. So I've made some changes in my life. In my late 20s, early 30s, one of my sisters went through recovery, and she's been clean 26 years in July. And I went through recovery with her because I didn't have chemical issues, but I didn't know this at the time. I was a people pleaser really bad. And so the counselor said to me, how has your sister's addiction affected you? And I said, it hasn't. And she said, liar. And I mean, she told the truth. And I didn't know I had practiced not knowing how her addiction affected. I had practiced that because it was too painful to feel the effect. And I learned how to feel the effect of life being what it is and to handle it. So that's a really good tool for understanding the family drama. Playing the victim is not helpful in a case. Laziness. The definition, behaviors of laziness. Students who come late, turn in poor work, no show, no participation, do not initiate, and they show no substantial participation. I always say to the students, when I do my bias, prejudice, and stereotype thing, I say I have one prejudice, lazy. I'm not even apologizing for it. I'm just saying, I'm not talking the difference between cultural differences or temperament differences, because there's some chill people, and I can do chill if I need to. But when you're getting paid to work, and trust me, if you're in school and you're getting financial aid, baby, you're getting paid to work. You show up all the time, every time. So that's what I talk to them about. That's a big deal. Substantial participation, as we talked about earlier. Aloof, that student who seems not to care, they drag their feet, they don't do anything with the learning team, they repeat the same mistakes on papers or in the learning team. Yeah, yeah, okay, so yeah. These are yeah, but how. Here's the yeah, but how. If we had like a ton of time right now, I would unpack these scenarios and talk about how we would approach this aloof student. I would first talk to that student one-on-one. You don't seem to be interested in this coursework. And I would just leave that hanging. And if they don't say anything, are you interested in completing this course? Because right now you're standing at roughly a D or D minus. I don't plan to step that up until you step up your participation. So what is your choice here? And it's interesting. It's like somebody clearly held up a mirror and they went, oh, I got spinach on my teeth. They appreciate it for the most part. I've never had anybody go, you know what, I'm just not going to complete this class. I want a D. A D is a good enough thing for me. Because they don't. They want to do well. And so when I present that, you know, I'm usually, you know, supportive but clear. Let's see. Let's go back to the, do you have any questions about these kinds of, let's talk about the cultural issues, because I could use some feedback from you on this, Jan, okay? One of the things that I know that's different in Latino culture and us is time. It's a big difference. I don't have a choice of teaching my class from 2:30 to whatever, or that's the time I've been given. So I'm kind of stuck in that conundrum. So I'll often say, I know we have to be here every day, and I know I'm asking 95%. And you know what? I don't like it all that much either. And there are days I just don't want to be here. So how about if we all agree to the contract, which is the syllabus, that we do this for this 10 weeks, And then you can make a new decision in the next 10 weeks, but we agree to this right up front, okay? Anybody, are you in or are you out type thing. I mean, that contract is got to be as clear as you can possibly make it about writing expectations, reading expectations, substantive participation, attendance being there, the separation between the two, how much points. I give 25% of my grade is participation. So if there's 400 total points, 100 of that is participation. Attendance, obviously you have to be here to participate, so I don't really care about that. Does that make sense? But if you come in.
You can't use that as a grading.
Participation?
You can't use attendance as a
No,
grading.
no.
So that's how we get around it. Participate, you can't be here.
Yeah,
You can't participate if you're not here, so you have to.
that's right. So then, a gentleman, really good student, talks all the time, really participative. He's been known to come in at about 25 after class starts with a Starbucks or something, right? So today, second to the last day, all the other students are engaged when he comes in. He usually picks it up right away. And they were saying, oh, I don't have to take the final, I've been here 95%. And he goes, I know, me too. And I go, actually, no. You've got like 4 days, you've come in, passed that 95%, so you're taking the final. And he's like, I am? I go, yeah. I didn't know that. I know because you weren't here all those days ahead of time listening for the details. And that's your issue. That's not mine. And I don't feel bad about it. It's not my issue. So that, separating out, and this is the last notion. I know you guys both probably dying to go, but I think this will help specifically with the visual for the, and you can help me. Control in Spanish is the same word in English, or not? Control.
I don't know. I don't speak Spanish.
What language are you teaching?
English, but I only speak in English.
I didn't know that.
Well, there was something you said earlier that suggested to me
Yeah.
that you were speaking
I
Spanish.
thought, oh, how wonderful.
You know,
Okay.
in any language class, you don't speak
Okay.
the student's language. You
You know,
speak the language that you're being taught.
Beautiful.
I understand that, but there was something that I
No.
misunderstood.
I thought you were speaking
that you were
Spanish.
speaking
My
Spanish
bad. Okay.
and English today.
So this will help, and I can send this. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but it's control, and on this side is can, and on this side is cannot. And I will do this at the beginning of my class so the students know what I'm aware of. Okay. So I'm going to ask you two as experts, what in your life can you control? What's controllable in life?
What I put in my mouth for the most
Okay.
part.
So I'm going to put this under what I do. So anything about what I do or otherwise actions, okay? We know that's in my control, okay? What else?
That we can control?
That you can control. You and I can control in our lives.
Well, isn't that kind of all encompassing?
No, it isn't. It isn't. I can also control what I think,
Okay.
okay? So my beliefs, okay? Okay? And I can control what I say, my words, okay?
I don't know about the thinking, I would challenge that.
What's the words or the beliefs?
I would challenge what you think, but we can have a conversation about that another time.
Okay, good. I would-
Beliefs, I agree.
Yeah,
Words
okay.
is
So this notion about now what I can't control, and I think this is where you're going, Gwenellen, is feelings. They're just feelings, right? But I can control what I do with them, what I think about them, and what I say about them. And I cannot control others, right? When I get clear about this, and I don't spend any time over here, but I spend the majority of my life over here, weird thing happens. My life's back in my control. I am telling you, this will revolutionize how you teach class because you know what you can and can't control. How you feel, student, about what I just said is not my issue. I'm always going to temper with kindness and respect to my students what I say, what I do, and what I think. Now, somebody walks in here with an AK-47, after I shart, I'll just like, So the feeling's gonna be there, but I will certainly control what I say and what I do and what I think about that. I'll probably be out that door so fast your head will spin. But reality is, we know that those are the things that are in our charge. I believe where people get in trouble in classes, student or instructor, is on this side. Trying to control how other people think, what other people say, what other people do. Okay? And I can't control, I can only put it out there. So I'm putting out that information on that syllabus. That's my contract with my students. And that's all I can do. That's my job, that's my responsibility. And I'm not gonna go from that class and take on their part. I will be wasting my energy and theirs. And I'll be lying too. I'll be, I call this side over here. This is the possible right here, right? This is the possible. And this is the impossible. That's it, okay? And if we spend time doing the impossible when we could have spent all this time doing the possible, how lame is that? And all of us, if we're honest, have done that. We've worried about what other people thought, what other people did, what other people said, instead of worrying about what we're doing, what we're saying, and what we're thinking. And feelings are just feelings. I really struggled last year when I got super sick because I'd never been in a time where I was not able to work in my whole life. I couldn't even remember a time. And I felt the word worthless comes up. And I thought to myself, okay, I can't do anything. I really couldn't do anything for that week period that I was in the hospital, and they were just saying, you're gonna die. And I'm like, I'm not gonna die. And they're like, if we don't figure this out, you are. And I thought, what can I do? And so I just, because I started processing that on that other side, I said, honey, why don't you go home and grab my probiotics, my acidophilus and stuff, because this is caused by bad antibiotics. So just cognitively, I was so sick before, I didn't even think of that part. And I got on my probiotics, I started eating well. I was released the next day, right? And they're like, what? And we don't offer probiotics. And I go, yeah, but you'll offer something that kills me. So here's the deal. I'm in charge of me. You're not. And I'm here today because of that. So, I don't know. That's what I have. I also have a handout of a matrix for grading that also makes grading more clear. And I think sometimes that is part of the problem because they don't know what we're grading on, and they think we're being subjective when we really need to be more objective about grades. And so if you just deposit into this your assignment and then break out the grades the way, and this is specifically for written and presentations, I always give 70% for content and then 30% for their APA and their sentence structure and some things like that. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to make sure. There's always, it seems like the time goes so fast. Has this been helpful?
It's good ideas in there.
You know?
What some of the-
Here, I love your PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm eager to see it.
And it has a lot of fun stuff on it. There's a gentleman, his name is Stefan Belding, who does a lot of the generational stuff, and he's actually a doctor, Dr. Stefan Belding, and he's presenting all over the world right now around his stuff, and a lot of that is his, and he's wonderful. And some of this information about the matrix and the critical thinking, I just want to give credit where it's due, was out of the University of Phoenix, okay? And oh, good. And then this is out of a book called, and this is a training that came through the Oregon Department of Corrections. It's a really outstanding training. It's really amazing. So if you want to go and get more information on that, you sure can. Okay, one more thought, and this is a cultural thing too, okay? Cultural, and it can be not out of the state culture, but in-house culture. You guys have probably heard of locus of control before. The notion Julian Rotter put forth that people had two perspectives. One is that we believed that our life was in our control and that we are responsible for our own punishments and rewards. The other one, that's internal locus of control, External locus of control believes that luck, chance, fate, and powerful others control us. Whichever one we believe, we let that happen. And the research says that externals do not like to take challenges, and they don't handle new things very well. They tend to let things just happen, and they're not too curious, which is interesting because if you're an external, this whole thing of Socratic questioning and challenging assumptions will be foreign. So you'll know that right away. And they are susceptible to higher anxiety, typically give up easily. They don't adapt well to stress. Makes sense. If you don't think you're in control of your life, you won't. And will not spend as much time on a task. So when we give them assignments that take a little bit more cognitive processing, they feel stuck. They're more susceptible to depression. Very rarely finish school. Okay, they give up easily. Don't change habits. And those are all things that are necessary in the workplace, everything. So I want to raise awareness of internal locus of control, and Twenge, Twenge, is the theorist on this. The current one, 2006, did a study, or print article came out, a peer-reviewed journal, suggesting that between 1960 and 2000, a 40-year period, that external locus of control has gone up 60% in our young people.
It correlates with his colleague who was
Oh, can I get a copy of that?
This one, yeah, you can have this one.
Or-
Can you send
Yeah.
it out?
I can send you out the locus of control stuff. Do you want me to send it out online? I can give you this copy. Yeah,
His
'cause
colleague
I
was
just,
looking at the rise in narcissism.
yeah. Was that I am and Quang? Is that
It's
Twenge,
and
Zhang, and M? I am. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what is the person's name?
Twenge.
And they actually,
Awesome.
they